Karen hijacked my ranch for a wedding, so I let the livestock join her big day. Have you ever had someone barge into your life, demanding everything on a silver platter, only to learn they've bitten off more than they can chew? It was a crisp autumn morning on my Montana ranch, the kind where the air smells of pine and possibility. I was sipping coffee on my porch, watching my horses graze, when a sleek black SUV roared up my dirt driveway, kicking up dust like a storm. Out stepped Karen, all designer sunglasses and entitled swagger, her heels sinking into the gravel. She didn't introduce herself, didn't ask permission, she just started barking orders. "This is perfect for my daughter's wedding venue," she declared, gesturing at my 50-acre property like she already owned it. "We'll take it next weekend. You'll need to clear out the animals and spruce this place up." I blinked, coffee cup frozen halfway to my lips. My ranch, a labor of love built over a decade, wasn't a venue for hire. It was my home, my livelihood, home to 20 horses, a herd of goats, and a particularly sassy llama named Pedro. I tried to explain this wasn't a public space, but Karen waved me off like I was a pesky fly. "Money's no object," she said, tossing her hair. "Name your price. My Brittany deserves a Pinterest-perfect wedding, and your rustic aesthetic will do." Her tone dripped with condescension, as if my life's work was some quaint backdrop for her daughter's Instagram photos. I'm not one to back down, but I'm also not one to waste breath on someone who doesn't listen. Karen handed me a contract she'd already drawn up, demanding I sign it by noon. It promised $10,000 for exclusive use of my ranch for 48 hours, provided I removed all livestock, mowed the fields, and let her crew redecorate. The audacity was almost impressive. I told her I'd think about it, mostly to get her off my porch. She smirked, climbed back into her SUV, and peeled out, leaving a cloud of dust and a sinking feeling in my gut. The truth hit me as I read her contract later that day. Karen wasn't asking, she was demanding. The fine print gave her control over every inch of my property, from the barn to the creek, with clauses about unlimited guest access and no interference from me. Worse, I found her social media posts already advertising Brittany's Dream Ranch wedding, with photos of my property, geotagged without my consent. She'd been planning this for weeks, assuming I'd cave. My blood boiled. I'm a rancher, not a pushover, and this was my land-me sanctuary. Karen wasn't just entitled. She was a bulldozer in human form. Then came the twist. My neighbor, Old Man Jenkins, a grizzled cowboy with a knack for gossip, knocked on my door that evening. Over whiskey. He told me Karen had tried to book his vineyard first but got kicked out for trying to lowball him and demanding he rip out his grapevines for better photo angles. Jenkins cackled, saying, "She's a vulture, but she's got no idea what she's in for with you." His words sparked an idea. If Karen wanted my ranch, she'd get it exactly as it was, livestock and all. The confrontation brewed as Karen's crew arrived the following Saturday. A convoy of catering vans, floral trucks, and a team of harried event planners. I hadn't signed her contract, but she'd clearly assumed I would. Tents went up in my pasture, fairy lights were strung across my barn, and a stage was erected by the creek where my goats liked to nap. Karen strutted around, barking at her staff while Brittany, her daughter, trailed behind, looking overwhelmed. I almost felt bad for the girl, but when Karen spotted me leaning against my fence, she marched over, waving her phone. "Why are your animals still here?" she shrieked. "I told you to clear them out." I crossed my arms, calm as a summer breeze. "You never got my signature, Karen. This is my ranch, my rules. You're welcome to use the space, but the animals stay." Her face turned beet red, and she launched into a tirade about how I was ruining her daughter's perfect day. She threatened to sue, to call the sheriff, to make my life hell. I just smiled and said, "Good luck with that." Then I walked away, whistling for Pedro the llama, who trotted over like he knew something was up. The real showdown came that evening, as 200 guests in tuxedos and gowns filled my pasture. The ceremony was set to start at sunset, with Brittany walking down an aisle lined with roses. Karen had transformed my ranch into a gaudy wonderland, but she hadn't accounted for one thing: my livestock. See, I'd spent the morning subtly sabotaging her setup, not maliciously, mind you, just naturally. I left the goat pens unlatched, knowing they'd wander toward the smell of fresh flowers. I let Pedro roam free, banking on his love for chaos. And I may have forgotten to lock the horse corral, trusting my lead mare, Daisy, to lead her herd toward the open field where the reception was set. As Brittany started her walk down the aisle, the first bleats echoed. A dozen goats stormed the scene, munching on the rose petals and knocking over chairs. Guests gasped, some laughed, but Karen's scream could have shattered glass. Then Pedro, bless his furry heart, decided the wedding cake was his personal buffet. He barreled through the dessert table, sending frosting flying and guests scrambling. By the time Daisy and her herd trotted in, grazing around the dance floor, the wedding was pandemonium. Brittany burst into tears, not out of sadness but frustration, yelling, "Mom, I told you this was a bad idea." That was the second twist. Brittany hadn't wanted this over-the-top spectacle. She'd begged for a simple courthouse wedding, but Karen had insisted on a dream event to flex her status. Karen's empire crumbled faster than her daughter's cake. She tried to salvage things, screaming at her staff to catch those animals. But my goats were nimble, Pedro was unstoppable, and the horses just snorted at anyone who got too close. Guests started leaving, some snapping photos of the chaos for social media, others muttering about that awful woman. The sheriff did show up. Karen had called him, but when he saw the situation, he just chuckled and told her, "Ma'am, this is private property. You're the one trespassing." I'd never seen a woman deflate so fast. Karen stood there, mascara running, as her dream of a perfect wedding turned into a barnyard circus. By midnight, the tents were half collapsed, the catering was trampled, and Karen was nowhere to be found. Brittany, to her credit, stayed behind to apologize. She sat on my porch, still in her wedding dress, and told me how her mother had steamrolled her wishes, obsessed with appearances. I offered her a beer, and we laughed about Pedro's cake heist. She even admitted she liked the goats. They'd made her laugh for the first time all day. Before she left, she promised to send me a check for the damages. Not that I'd asked. It was a small victory, but it felt good to know not everyone in that family was cut from Karen's cloth. The next morning, as I cleaned up the wreckage, I found Karen's designer sunglasses half buried in the mud, trampled by hoofprints. I tossed them in the trash, a fitting end to her reign of entitlement. My ranch was mine again, a little messier but still standing proud. Word spread fast. Jenkins made sure of that, and soon, locals were stopping by to share their own Karen stories, turning my porch into a hub of laughter and camaraderie. I'd taken a stand, not just for my land but for everyone who's ever been bullied by someone who thinks money buys everything. Life on the ranch went back to normal, but the lesson stuck with me. Sometimes the best way to fight a storm is to let it rage and watch it blow itself out. Karen thought she could hijack my world, but she didn't count on the goats, the llama, or the stubborn heart of a rancher. And maybe, just maybe, she learned that some things like respect can't be bought. What do you think? Did Karen get what she deserved, or should I have handled it differently? Share your thoughts. I'd love to hear them.